This conference will now be recorded.
Guys, yesterday we have discussed about the how to pass the data from the parent component to the child component by using the input decorator. So in this today's class, like we'll see the how to pass the data from the child component to the parent component by using the output decorator. Guys, anyone practiced yesterday's yesterday's class? Like anyone tried to create the dashboard page and anyone practiced?
I have tried that AG grid one.
Okay, okay,
Uh,
good nursery.
I hope I didn't get any errors.
Okay,
Yeah.
have you added the AG grid to your Angular application and have you able to load the grid?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, then it's great. Okay, today like we'll see the how to pass the data from the uh, child to parent. First, before I'm going to pass the data from the child to parent, we will take two components. Like we'll make one as a parent component and we'll make one another component as a child component. For example, here yesterday we have seen right. We have the common grid and we have the employee right. So I will consider this employee component as a parent component because why means like we are using the common grid component in the employee component, right? So we'll be treat this as a this common grid as a child component and this employee as the parent component. So let me write some HTML here so that we'll be having the clear picture. I'll ta- sorry, I'll take one paragraph here. uh, this is parent component. I'll mention as employee component and I'll give one horizontal line picture. So this is the parent component, and for the common grid also, like I'll write one text as a child component so that it will be clear. This is a child component, uh, grid component. So we have separated the two components, like the parent component and this is the child component. Now my requirement was like I want to pass some data. I want to pass some data from the child component from this component to the parent component. How to pass that? So if you want to pass, like we need to use the output decorator. The syntax will be like this. So now we are in the child component. Right? We need to pass the data from the child component, right? So that like we need to define the on decorator inside the child component. So the decorator name was output. So if you want to pass the data from the parent to child, like we are using the input, right? So in the similar way, we have the one more decorator called output, which is used to pass the data from the child component to the parent component. So I'll take it as a output. So, I have taken as output, right? So once if you use this set that output decorator, like automatically we should import it from the Angular core, like similar way key input and on init and output. So now I want like I'll give this output decorator name as, for example, send data or like send data, and it's a type as a event emitter. So basically here what we are going to do was like in the child component, for example, let us assume like we'll be having the one button. So whenever if we click on some particular button, So I need to send data to the parent component. So most of the times, like no, this output decorator, like we are going to pass the data whenever like we have some event kind of actions. So I'll be having one button in this child component. So whenever if I click on that button, so I need to send the data to the parent component. So for that reason, like I am going to assign its type as a event emitter, and I'll define its type as a string equals to new event emitter. We should import this event emitter from the Angular core. I'll remove this one. Guys, I'll explain once again the syntax. So, I mean, whenever if you're passing the data from the child component to the parent component, so we are going to use the @output decorator. So, @output decorator is mainly works with the event emitter. So, sir, what is meant by event emitter? So here, event emitter is we can consider it as a class one class. So this event emitter is useful to send the data from the child component to parent component. So event emitter will have the one property called emit. So with the help of the emit, so we'll be sending data from the child component to the parent component. So you can consider this as a predefined class. So which is useful to emits the data. Emits the data. So once if I emits the data from the child component, no, I mean in the parent component, someone has to subscribe to it. Like it's kind of observable. So we'll be discussing the observables in the later classes. So I mean, for now, like you will consider this as a one class. So which has some sort of properties and methods. So event emitter will have the emit method. So it will emits the data from this child component to the parent component. Once if you emit the data from the child component, the parent component, like someone has to subscribe it. Like I'll show you. I mean, how we are going to subscribe this data in the parent component. So now we have defined the I mean output decorator. Now what I want was like I want one button. I want one button in the child component. For example, I'll take one button, send data. So I'll take one method. So whenever if I click on the send data button, I need to send some data from child component to parent. So for that I'll take it as a click equals to, I'll take this method name as a send data or send string. So I'll define this method in component. So now whenever if I click on this send data button, so I should send some data to the parent component. For example, I just want to send the data as a, I mean, welcome to Monica IT, or like, I mean, welcome to Hyderabad kind of thing. I need to send some data. So for that, like I have taken one button and I have defined one method inside the I mean TypeScript class. Now, I mean, once if I click on this method, no, I'll send the data by using this output. I mean this output decorator. Now, like I'll use this dot send data. Send data is the like output decorator name. Dot emit. I'll send it as a like welcome to HYD. So I mean I told you, right? So even this is the this send data type as I have given as event emitter, right? So this event emitter class will be having the one method called emit. So if you want to send data from child to parent, we should use this output name, this dot send data dot emit. So inside the emit, like we need to give the text, like whatever the text we need to pass from child to parent. So this dot send data dot emit. So now we are done with the child component. I mean, this is how like we are going to initialize the output decorator and the sending the data from child to parent. Now we are sending this emit, right? We need to capture in the parent component. Now I'll go to the parent component called employee. So we are using the app common grid here, right? So previously we are passing data from the parent to child by using the property binding. Now we have here, like I told you, right, we are going to use the event emitter, right? So I am going to use the parenthesis here. So if it is the input, like we are going to use the square bracket. If it is for the output, like we are going to use the parenthesis. Now in this parenthesis, like uh, we need to get the this property name. So whatever the property we have defined, right? This send data. So yeah, for employees, we are using the square brackets, right? Similar way, like I'm going to use this send data here. So here I'll go to employee component. I'll take the output property name as send data equals to. So now we are getting that data. Now we are getting the data from the child component to the parent component, right? So if I want to access it, like I need to define one method. I told you, right? Whenever if you some data is emitting from the child component, so we need to get the data. So for that, like I'll write one method here, get data. So I'll take it as a, I mean, a dollar event. So get data. I mean, why I have taken this as a dollar event was like this is a predefined event in Angular. So if I want to receive the data from the child component to the parent component, like I should use this one. So next, now we have defined this, I mean, get data, right? So I'm going to add that method in the employee component TS. So get data. So we are passing that dollar event as a parameter, right? So I'll take it as a we need to get the data, right? I'll take it as a one more parameter here. So data. So I'll consider its type as a string because like we are sending the data as a string value. So now I'll console it here. Console.log data. Now we'll see like whether whether we are getting the data from the child component to parent component. So let me save this one. So I'll open the console. I'll clear the console. Now I click on the send data. Now we can see we are getting the welcome to Hyderabad, like welcome to Hyderabad. We can able to print the data. So whenever if I click on some button in the child component, like I am getting the data to the parent component. Now here we can see this is the employee component as a parent component, right? So now we can see the data. So this is how like we are going to pass the data from the child component to the parent component. For example, in the employee component, no, now here I am just consoling the data, but like I want to print this data in the HTML. I'll take one property, for example, greet message, type as a string. Now I will assign this data to this variable like this dot greet message equals to data. Now I want to print this data, right? So I'm going to use the interpolation in the HTML so that like we can print that data. So I'll take it as a one H3 element. Now I'll print it here as a greet message. I mean, instead of console, I just want to show. I mean, I just want to show in the HTML page. What
RNG
happened?
greet message is available, sir.
We haven't
Sorry.
saved the TS file.
Yeah, I have not saved the TS file. Yeah, now we can see like so we are getting data from the child component to the parent component. Guys, this is very easy. Like I'll repeat once again. Now my requirement was like I have two components called employee component and the common grid component. So here the employee component is the parent component and common grid as the child component. I want to send the data from the child component to the parent component with an action like so I just want to by whenever if I click on some button, I need to send the data. So for that, what I have taken was like so in the child component, I have defined one decorator called like at the rate output decorator, and I have given its name as send data. We guys we can give any name here. For example, I can give it as data also, it will works. For example, if I give data here also I need to change, and we are using this output property name in the parent component also, right? So we need to change here also. For example, if you change that property name, we need to change here also. So we have defined one property with the event emitter. So next, like I have taken one button. Whenever if we click on that button, no, I am sending that data. I am sending that data by using this output property name. This dot send data dot emit. So I am sending it's a basic string value. So once if I send this value, no, so in the parent component, someone has to subscribe or like someone has to get. So for that reason, I have taken one more method here, like get data. So send this output decorator is sending some data to the parent component, right? So we have to receive that data. So for that reason, I have defined one method in the parent component by using this, I mean, by passing this dollar event. And now I want to fetch that data, right? So I'm going to fetch that data by using this method, and I am printing in the HTML page. Now, like, I mean, I have one requirement. Guys, this is the basic thing. Like, I mean, I just showed you how to pass the data from the child component to the parent component. Sir,
Sir,
what is the
can you explain one more time? Actually, I am not understanding that send data. Why we declare the same as send data in the same?
in the common grid?
Yes, yes.
This this is the just output decorator name property name. So whenever if you're going to define at the rate input decorator at the rate output decorator, so this decorator should have the one property name. For that reason, I have given it as a send data. You can give any name. You can take some other name also. For example, data object kind of thing. So it is mandatory to define the one property along with the at the rate output decorator. So then only like I can use this property name in the parent component. Here I am using the send data. So if I want to receive the data from the child component to the parent component, at least like we should have the one property name with the output decorator. Then only it will works. So this send data, I mean, I have this as a output property name. This name and the whatever the name I have defined here, no, it should be same.
Okay, okay. And what is the use of this send string function?
This send string one, this one we are calling this one whenever if I click on the button, right? For example, in the HTML, I have taken as send data, right? So you can take I mean you can take any name, like I
Okay,
have just given its name as
okay,
a send
okay,
data.
okay.
So once if I click on
Okay,
the button, I am calling that function and I'm sending the data from child to parent component.
fine, fine. Thank you.
Okay, now we have done. Sir, we are passing the data from the child component to the parent component. Sir, what is the use? I mean, what is the real-time scenario where I need to use this? I mean, where I need to use this output decorator in the real-time scenarios. So we are just passing the data. So like, will this helps in the real-time application? No, because like, I mean, even though like if you go through some basic tutorials also, you will get this information. So now my requirement was like, sir, why should I pass the or why should I send the data from the child component to the parent component? Now I have one requirement here. I mean, my requirement was like, so in the child component, for example, in the child component, I'll be having the some form. So where I need to fill its form, and once if I click on the submit data, so it should go to the, I mean, we should send the data to the parent component. For example, let us take in this way. Now consider like we have one form. We have one form here in the child component. In the form, like I'll be taking as a employee name. So I will fill the employee name and I will click the send employee, I mean send data. So once if I click the send data, that employee should be added to this table. I mean, how can we do that? Like, this is my requirement. I have one table and I have one form in the child component. So whenever if I click on the, I mean, I'll fill the employee form and I'll click on the submit button. Once if I click on the submit button, I mean, whatever the data I have entered in the form, right, that should be added to the this table. So I mean, in these kind of scenarios, like we'll be using the set the rate output decorator, guys. Now I want someone to help to achieve this one. Guys, you understood the requirement. Like I have the one form in the child component. So whenever if I fill the data and click on the submit button, I want to add the employee data to this table.
Sir, we can pass from child component to parent component, and then we'll push the latest employee data to the table, sir.
Yeah. We can push. Guys, someone help me to do this. Karthik, like, can you please explain me the steps, like how we are going to implement this one?
Sir, like in the child component, we'll accept all the data, and then we'll emit that by using the @ input. And in the parent component, we'll read that empted new employee data, and then we'll push that empted data to the table, sir.
Okay, correct. Like, I mean, how will be the your approach? Like, how, for example, assume that like you have given this task and in your project, and they have given, for example, 2 hours time to do it. Like, how will you start?
Okay, I will create one table in the parent component, and then I will create one form in the child component, sir. And then I will accept by using the ng model. I will take all the input fields, and then I will maintain one of the object, and I will pass that object to the parent component, sir.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So, guys, I mean, whenever if you get the, I mean, these kind of requirements, no, like first we need to understand the requirement, and we need to divide the this requirement into the different, I mean, different pieces. Like, for example, this is the requirement, so we need to divide this requirement into the different pieces. So, what is meant by the different pieces means, like, for example, uh, let us consider like we need to send the we need to send the data from child to parent, right? Now my requirement was like I have the I mean, I need to add this. I mean, I need to fill the employee data in the form, and I need to send that data to the I mean table. So I mean now, like for example, if I give, I mean, if I give someone this task to me, like I'll divide this way. Like so, first I'll prepare the form data. I'll prepare the employee form. I mean, try to divide this. I mean, requirement into the like a small kind of pieces or like a small kind of actions, so that like it will be very clear. So first, I mean, prepare the employee form. For example, employee form. So like, what are all the fields I need to send? For example, assume like a employee name as a one field, and for now, like I'll take it as a employee ID. Now we have the two input fields, and what are, I mean, what other we need to do, I mean, what other things like we need to have means like we need to submit this data, right? So we'll be having the one submit button. So now my form is ready. So I have the input fields, employee name, employee ID, and the submit button. So now my next requirement was like, so whenever if I enter some data in the, I mean, employee name and employee ID inputs, I need to check whether, I mean, I need to check whether we are getting the data, like we are reading the proper data or not. So if you want to read the values from the input fields, like, I mean, how can we do in the Angular? So we'll be using the ng model directive. So I mean, after preparing this form, like we should get the clear idea, like how to read the values from the input fields. Once if I enter the data in the input fields, how can I read? So like, is there any methods? So we are going to use the ng model directive. So this is to get the values from input fields. Now so now we are able to get the values. Now we have the submit function, submit button, right? So in the submit button we are going to click that button, right? So next thing I want the one uh, I need to define one click method on button. So once if I define the click method, now we need to have one function in the a function in the TS. So now like we are ready. I mean until this like we are ready. Now the my next requirement was like now I need to so we are ready. We are good with the child component. Now I need to send the data to the parent component. Now my next step was like define output property in the in child component. After defining this list, I mean, I need to send that data whenever if I click on this function, like submit button, right? So inside the submit button, like I'm going to write this like this dot send data dot emit that property name. So once if I mean click on this button, so we'll be sending data from the child component to parent. So in the parent component, like I need to define one more method to access the data from child component. So now I am getting the data from the child component to the parent component. Now I want to add that data to this table. So how we are displaying this table means like we are defining the one array, right? Employees list of employees array. So here, I mean, whenever if I get the new employee details, I need to push that data to the that array. So next step was like push the data to the employee array. So once if you first like we need to check whether we are going to get that data in the table or not. So when so like in the real time project, like whether people are working or not, I mean whether people are working on the different projects. So whenever if you give the some particular requirement or the some assignment, first you try to divide the I mean the requirement into the like different steps, then like you can do it, like with clear mind, like it is very easy, somewhat like in the initial stage of career, like for example whenever if you're having some 1 year experience or 2 years experience, no, so when someone like project manager or team lead assigns some tasks, no, so like we'll feel like it is very difficult, or like I mean we don't have some clarity, or even though if you have the like you know that you have the complete clarity on the requirement, but you don't know the like how to do, like I mean what are all the techniques like we need to use if you want to achieve this particular task. So guys, like I mean I have seen the many people like they knew the Angular from like they are good in the Angular, and they knew the everything in the Angular, but where they are failing was like they are unable to make the like all the concepts in a single plate, like if they want to achieve the particular task means like we need to combine the different tasks. Here only if you take like we are using the form elements, and we are using the ng model directive, and we are using the event binding, like if you want to send the data, so and like we are using the output property, like output property in the child component, like to communicate from the two components. So we need to combine the like all the concepts we have learned in the Angular, so then only you can achieve that requirement. Now this is so like we have prepared the steps, guys. Now we'll do this now. Now we'll do this in this class only. Now I want someone to help me to this to do this one. So first like we'll prepare the employee form, guys. So where do I need to prepare this employee form? Is it in the employee component or child component? Sorry, in the common grid component. We'll ask.
Common.
Okay, okay. Yeah, who's this?
So with this said,
Yeah. So yeah. Tell me.
So we have to make the form this in this common grid component.
Exactly. So okay. So it's like we'll follow your steps. So now I'll take one form here. For example, uh, I'll take an input type as is text. So I'll give its name as employee name. Employee. Now I'll take one more thing. Employee ID. So input type text. Next, like we have the one more button, right? So I'll reuse this one only instead of send data, submit. Now I'll save this one. So now we have the employee name and the employee ID. So now we are ready with the form. But like in the real time scenarios, no, they will give the some mock-up like the I mean I want this employee name. Mock-up is nothing but like they will give the some Photoshop design screen. They will like it will have all the details how we need to display this input fields and what color and what is the margin and padding. So we are not showing that here. So like it is very easy, we can implement by using the CSS also. Now we are good with the employee name and the employee ID. So now I want to read these values. So for that, like we are going to use the ng model. Guys, like is ng model is a one way data binding or two-way data binding?
Two-way
Two-way
data
data
binding.
binding.
Yes, exactly. It is a two-way data binding. So I have taken one property as the employee name. So here also I'll take it as the one more property with the help of ng model equals to employee ID. So now we have defined the two properties as employee name and employee ID. So if you are going to use with the ng model means like we need to define these two properties in the TS file also. So now I'll define here. So employee name. So it's a type as I'll define. I'll take it as a string. So I'll give this exclamation mark to avoid the initialization error. So similar way, like we'll use the employee ID. So we have defined the two properties. We are good until here. Now what is my requirement was like, so once if you enter the field, like I need to check whether we are getting the proper values once we click on the submit button or not. So I'll replace this name as a, for example, uh, submit employee data. So I'll rename in the TS also, submit employee data. Now my next thing was like I need to check whether I am getting the whatever the data I have entered in the input boxes or not. So for that, what I will do was I'll do console.log this dot emp name, and I'll take one more console.log this dot emp id. Why I am taking this start emp name and emp id was because I have given these properties to the ng model, right? So we are using the ng model to read the data. That's why I'm printing this start emp name and this start emp id. Now we'll see. I think I have forget to say this one. Now we are good. Now just click on the inspect. Now go to console. Now enter the employee name. For example, I'll enter as a Karthik. Employee ID as a 100. Now I click on the submit. So we are getting the I mean, we are getting the whatever the data we have entered. For example, now I'll replace this with Venkatesh. I'll give it as a employee ID as 101. So now we can see the Venkatesh and 101. So we are getting, so we are perfectly reading the values from the input fields. So we have done with this first two steps, like so prepare the employee form. We have the employee name, employee ID, and the submit button, and we are using the ng model to read the values. And we have done this one also, click method on the button. So this is the send employee data. Now we need to define the one output property in the child component. So already we are having this property, right? We'll be using this one. So output send data, right? Now what I will use this as a, for example, employee data, like to make it as a meaningful name, I'll use as a employee data. So now I want to send this, this employee data, like this employee name to employee ID to the parent component. How can we do this one? Guys, anyone?
Sir, this dot employee data dot emit and then employee data, and then we have to
Okay,
pass this dot employee and
this dot
employee
employee.
data dot emit,
Okay, this dot employee data dot emit.
and we have to
Uh,
emit those two datas. This dot employee as a object or individual
We
elements.
have we have to prepare the object like for that employee data, employee name and employee ID.
yes, exactly. So we'll prepare the one object. So I'll take it as, for example, let how to prepare the object in JS or TS.
Let
So
employee
just
name equal to
curly braces of that particular.
Exactly. So we are going to use the curly braces.
yes,
So
key value pair.
object is nothing but the key value pair, right? So I'll take it as a emp name equals to, I'll assign its value as the this dot emp name. Why? Because like we are getting this value from the ng model. So now I'll take it as a emp id. So this dot emp id. So we are good with the employee object. So now I need to send this data, this employee object. So employee object. I think we are having the error. Why we are having the error here?
Sir, it should be strings, sir. Employee name and employee ID. Employee
Yeah,
name and employee ID.
I have defined as a string only.
No,
Let
sir.
me
Within the
change
employee
this.
object, it's as a key value pair. Within the employee object.
Guys, any idea?
This dot employee object.
No, I have just taken as a let, right? Like I have not defined this employee object as a property, right? Okay, I'll give it as this dot employee object. No, it is not working.
Sir, here we have to emit the object. It is not of string.
Yes, exactly. So the mistake what I have done was like here previously I am sending its event empty value as a string, right? So here I need to, but here I'm trying to send the object. So that's why like we are getting this error. So I will remove this string and I'll give its value as a any for now. Like I can give the already we for employee object like we have this I employee interface. We can give this one also. But the thing was like I employee like we have the different properties. Now here also we are getting the error.
This is we have to place
Remove
the
this.
employee object here.
Okay. Okay. See here also like we are having the error because like this I
I think
employee
we are not following the interface.
Yeah.
I employee.
yeah, correct, exactly. So in the I employee, what we have done was like we have the five properties, but here I am making an object with the only two properties. So there is a mismatch with this interface and this employee object. So that's why it is not working. For now, like what I'll do is I'll make it as a any. Guys, if you want to work this one, no, here also we should have the all the five properties in the employee object. You try to create with the five properties and try. For now, like I'll take it as a any.
We can make it blank, right? We can declare as a blank property.
Yeah, we can declare.
Okay.
So now like we are sending the data, right? Now we'll check like whether we are getting this data in the parent component or not. Now in the output property, I have changed this property name as employee data, right? Now I need to change this property name in the parent component also. Like previously we are using the send data, right? So I'll replace this with the employee data. Now I'll replace this name as a get employee data. So now I'll change the data in the TypeScript also. So get employee data. I'll comment this one. We'll see. Okay. I will enter as a Pushpa 102. I click on the submit. Now we can see like now we made these two values as one object, right? So now we can see employee name and employee ID in the employee component, like in the parent component. Now we have received the data. Now what is my next step was like now we have done this one like I mean we have completed this 4 and 5 steps. Now I need to push this data to the employee array. So then only it will be visible in the table. How can we do that? Employee component. So now I need to write the logic here. Guys, any answers?
Yes, I think we should have to push that data we are getting into the
Okay.
current object.
Is it object or an array?
Array. This dot
Array.
Sorry, array.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. This dot
this
employee
dot in
data
dot
dot.
push
Push.
of string data.
Okay. Guys, like I mean, what does this push? What I mean, what is the use of this one?
So it
Push
will
method is
push the latest element to the table as a last indexer.
correct, correct. Yeah. So whenever if you use this push method, no, it will add this data at the end of the array. Now we have the 5, right? So it will add this data here. Now we are getting this, I mean, data as a error. I mean error because like I have given as a string, right? I'll replace with the any. Now we'll see. Srinivas 103. See now we can see like so we are able to add the data. We are able to send that data to the parent component. Here the parent component is the employee data, right? So I'm able to push the data to the employee array, and again I am passing this employee data to the child component. I mean how I am passing this to the child component was like I am using this employee data and employee I mean input property as employees, and I'm sending this data to the child component again. So we are done, guys. Like this is very easy. So whenever if you have any requirement, no, please try to split or like try to divide the requirement into the like I mean small pieces, so it will be very easy. So now like I want to have the employee department employee location designation. Like you take it as this as a I mean assignment, and try to add the other data to this table also. Now here like I have one more requirement like see now once we click on the submit button, no, these values are not clearing. I want to clear these values, guys. How can we do this? But this is not a good practice, right? So once we click on
Refresh.
submit button, it
Sir,
should ask to
on submit we have to clear this dot employee dot name is equal to empty.
okay. How can we do this one? So do I need
Reset.
to change the employee component and the common grid component?
In the common grid components.
Okay, yeah. Can you please tell me the syntax, Karthik? So
Sir,
where I need to change it?
once we emit the data to the child component, we have to emit this dot employee name is equal to empty, and this dot employee is equal to empty.
After the array getting the object, we reset the data.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I mean, can I do like this? This start emp name equals to how can I make it as empty, Karthik?
Two strings, sir, two double colons.
Okay. So also, I mean, if I give this as a like I mean string, right? So it will like this the whatever the value is present in the text box now it will clears. So I'll
Yes, sir.
take this uh, employee ID equals to, but here like we are getting the error.
It's a comma.
No, like I have assigned this type as a number, and here I'm trying to assign it's a number.
We can give null, sir.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Okay, can I change this number to string? I guess think of it like, for example, if we have these kind of scenarios, like how can we handle it? Or like I mean, will these kind of scenarios will exist in the real time also, real time or not? Basically, like I mean, we are not going to do this in the real time because like so in the real time, like we'll be having a lot of form fields. So like it will be having some more than 10 or kind of thing. So whenever if you're having the lot of form fields, no, we are not going to do this way. Now we have the two fields, right? Like that's why we are making using the single quotes. But like we can't define like everything as like I mean this start emp department equals to string. So this is not the good practice whenever if you're having the large form fields. So we are going to reset the forms. So we are going to see that like, in detail in the whenever we are going to discuss about the template driven and reactive forms in the Angular. For now, like I'll take it as a string only. I mean to make or like to clear this value. So I'll remove this one. I'll give Venkat 104. So now we can see like this value was cleared and it is added to the table also, guys. Guys, that's all for today's class. Like, so we have completed the, I mean, communication between the component guys by using the @input decorator and @output decorator. Now, like, we can share the data by using the service also. So I'm going to explain that service concept whenever I mean, we have started the Angular services concepts so that like it will be clear. So whenever if you have the parent and child relationship, so we are going to share the data by using the @input decorator and @output decorator. But like if the components are not related, so if the components are not related, means like we are going to use the service one shared service, and so we can share the data from one component to the another component, guys. We'll see that. I mean, we'll see that class in the later sections. Like once if you start with the Angular services. Thank you, guys.